Hello, this is my general process vlog for Thursday, April 7th, 2011. I made one earlier today and posted it to YouTube, but it's stopping in the middle, so I'm going to remake or make another general process vlog. I'd like to clarify a point that I made about prosperity and the equality of the soul. And I mentioned that the Egyptians, through a more equal distribution of wealth, began to practice the idea that anybody could have an after-death experience as long as they could afford it. It was no longer just the pharaohs and elite. And then I tied it to the Hebrews and them being in Egypt and then leaving Egypt and sharing with the world the idea that everyone has a soul. The point I didn't clarify was I brought the Hebrews up because of their, I guess, part in conveying everyone has a soul. But I didn't tie it together with the fact that their idea of the equality of the soul grew from the idea that one can buy their way into heaven, that one still has to pay to get in, no matter how equal the soul may be. I signed up for the Destiny I process today. I signed up for the Destiny forum today. I posted a entry into the introduce yourself here, just saying, hey, my name, been researching Destiny about 8 months, and I put a link to my blog. Of course it has to be approved, and I look forward to working with you. Point I've had to deal with all of my life is my wildness, the fact that I was allowed to grow up wild, which is ironic because I grew up very structured. I was always very self-disciplined to the point that I beat myself up very often. I just beat myself down until I obeyed. I was the good son. Even though I didn't want to be. And from my childhood experiences on up, I became very leery of humanity, like a wild animal. I avoid humans if at all possible. I know what it takes for me to survive, up to the point of willing to try and gnaw off my own leg to get away if I have to. And feeling the pressure of humanity and their money system and their desire to control, I naturally rebel. The more one tries to direct me in a certain way, the more I go in the opposite direction. But I'm not an animal. Although sometimes I'd rather be an animal. as far as a twin flame, twin soul, whatever people want to call it, I don't really work in terms of sound words. I work in terms of picture words. And so I don't really call it anything. I simply picture it. And to me, a twin would be me. And yes, that includes sex. I've never denied that point. Because, you know, ultimately, yes, I want to have sex, but I want it to mean something. I want it to matter. Um, and with someone like myself, I feel that condition is fulfilled. Ultimately, sex is simply a momentary interaction. But what that represents to me is being able to touch someone anytime I want to. If I just want to put my arms around them or put my hands on their face or just anything. I love to use my hands. And someone like me, I envision, would accept and allow that from someone like me. It's one reason I love the dog, or have great affection for the dog, because that is a point she does accept and allow. She allows me to touch her anytime I want to, and I can just hug her and just squeeze her, and it may be a point of insecurity, or it has grown into that, but it's really an enjoyment of expression and experience, ultimately. And the idea and the knowledge that someone or something is as comfortable with me as I am, which is something I've never found. And whether it's pre-programming or I programmed myself to accept only certain things because of this, I accept that. I have no desire for special treatment. Um, I watched a vlog from Victor, and he talked about going to the farm and working. And hard work or labor is stressed. And, I have nothing against that. I love to get my hands in the dirt. Um, Working hard is not a problem for me. Being motivated is an issue for me. Because ultimately, when I work in this world, I constantly remind myself that it's not going to last. That I'm working for money. That people won't understand what I'm doing. I come up with these excuses to keep myself from just doing it anyway. Or accumulating negativity as I do it. Yes, I've mentioned before that I am somewhat afraid for multiple reasons to experience the Destiny Farm. But as someone once said, the best way to face your fear is to have it come true. I acknowledge the fact that you say in general, people not willing to blog and vlog for 2 to 3 years may not be trustworthy. I have not been blogging or vlogging for 6 months, maybe 7, 8 months at the most. So again, if that standard is to be applied to everyone, I still have some time to prove myself. I have questions that may be viewed as selfish or perhaps having no bearing on what is best for all. But these are things that I ask myself and I have no answer for. Or if I do, it's the answer is in such a way that I'm not finding it as is. And despite my feelings towards humanity, I accept and allow them to be in my presence and me in their presence because they are reflective. And I can use them to find out the things that I overlook or I don't consider. Because I've noticed about myself that people will say, or put terms and conditions on certain things. And I will wonder, how do I fit in? Because I do not look at myself that way. I do not look at myself as honestly ever having to change, but only having to more fully express myself. And through this sort of withholding of self-expression, I have accumulated empty spaces, a warped view of reality, a warped self-expression, to the point that I may actually need help. I may actually have things I need to change. And although I would have loved to have encountered Destiny 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't. So here I am, there you are. I'm not saying let's act like these past 4 years haven't happened, but how about, we get together with the same sense of camaraderie and expectation to change things. I understand I may have let you down with my weakness, my pity parties, just my willingness to stay the course. I often picture myself as a child just kind of cowering in a corner, watching the monsters walk by, knowing that if I make a move or make a sound, they'll eat me. And it's not so much my experience now, but it's memories of my childhood experience. And just how I was open, how I freely expressed myself, and how I was freely attacked, both by children and adults. My mother looked at me with disgust. She said, "Don't look at me." And I was maybe 6. And I had no idea what was wrong. I mean, I knew it was because I was caught playing around with my brother. We were playing with each other's private parts and whatnot. But I had no idea that in the grown-up world, people don't do that. Or somehow I was expected to be straight. No one ever told me that. And I wasn't trying to be bad. I've heard many experiences from many different people of, especially boys, experimenting with each other. It wasn't a point of gayness or anything. It's just, look what I've got, that's what you've got, show me. And yes, it feels good, but they don't understand the grown-up version of sexuality. And that's the point I had to face. Um, and just, I don't know, I feel so let down that I'm willing to let the whole world down and then laugh at them as it burns. But it's a point of ignorance because I'm intentionally blocking out the connection I have to this place so that I can feel that way. It's like no one should treat children like that. No place should be allowed to exist that allows such treatment of children to exist. I may not be alone now, but I was alone. I grew up to myself in my head. And now I'm reaping the benefits and the consequences. At points I feel the lostness I feel is not so much coming from me, but the world around me and my non-fitting inness with this world. That I'm not lost to myself. And until relatively recently, I didn't even consider myself having past lives. I did to a certain extent, but it was specific. I consider myself Ryan Greenwood. I went through a stage where I thought it was Elijah. And my dreams would support that. But I was never really aware of what may or may not have been forgotten. And I do not, as a rule, look to experience physical reality. There's pain, there's suffering. That's really my plaything. Another point about myself I've noticed is something that separates me from humanity is I view this whole thing as a game. And consequences are other people's perceptions of themselves and not really have anything to do with me. That they're trying to impose their limitations onto me, and the laws they submit to, they try and impose onto me. You know, what laws does nature really have except eat, sleep, try to survive, and maybe have sex every once in a while? And then one might consider gravity, breath, stuff like that. But as far as do this, don't do this, other than points of staying alive, I mean, there's really no law. And if thoughts really are the enemy, then Homo sapiens, the thinking man, is going to become a new species. And I'm okay with that. Even though part of me has a great affinity for the ideal human. A point I must face about attending the Destiny Farm at any near future point is the dog. Would she be able to come with me? And if not, who do I leave her with? What does that say to her that I'm willing to leave her and continue my process of abandonment? And if I can't bring her with me and I don't find anyone worthy to watch her, then I would wait for her to naturally pass on. And that could be years. But, a 20-hour plane ride, I just don't know how she would survive, or, how she would handle it. She does not like being in a cage. I know I wouldn't be able to have her with me on the plane. And she will dig at the cage until her claws are bloody, and I just don't know what to do about that.